Hey, Alex.
Jason, Ivan, hello, how are you?
We're doing great.
Excellent. How's London treating you?
Good.
It's great.
It's a great city.
Always happy to be here.
Fantastic. So there you are, sitting alongside each other, as I believe you were for much of the filmmaking process in this movie. Were you this close?
Like closer. It was literally even like closer. That our director, the arms of our director's chairs were actually touching on set.
So, I mean, it's amazing that you work together so closely on this. The screening I saw, Jason, you made a joke at the start about imagining having your father involved in every creative decision you're making on a movie. But what was it actually like working this closely with each other, especially on a project that you're both so passionate about?
Well, I wasn't involved in every creative decision. I mean, this was Jason's script and Jason and Gil's script. And I thought it was quite brilliant and just I admired it.
I would say that you were involved in every creative decision by the mere fact that you're the whole reason we were there. And that if you think about everything that we were doing on this movie, it's a movie that obviously leans into nostalgia. It's about going through your grandparents' basement and finding out you were a Ghostbuster. And as a result, the way we approached every creative decision on this film often was, what would they have done in 1984? And in that way, we were feeling my kind of father's presence through every choice of shot, every tonal question, every piece of music, the way props looked, fabric worked. I was constantly trying to kind of live in my father's shoes and think about how he would have made this film.
And I mean, it sounds like you had a wonderful experience, but surely there must have been, let's not say argument, but at least one disagreement.
I can tell you what it was.
Yeah.
My father is very pro slime, and I'm very lukewarm on slime. And I know people love slime. My daughter loves slime. And for whatever reason, the slime gene just did not hit me. And so Afterlife is low on slime, particularly if you ask my dad.
Well, let's not put that in the ad.
So low on slime. Okay, but conversely then, what for you, Jason, was the best note that Ivan gave you while you were making this, where you were just like, actually, Dad, thank God you're here?
Oh, I mean, that happens all the time. Even when we argue about it, even and I would say this happens the most during editing, where I can be rather obstinate. Is that a decent word?
Yeah, very.
And my father would push on a note, and then finally I would try it, and he'd be right. And that's always that tough moment, right? It's like when you're playing poker and you know you have to fold your hand, but you don't want to fold it quite immediately. So you pretend you're still thinking about the cards. I hate to throw these cards away, but fine, you're right.
When it came to actually screening the movie, am I right in thinking, Jason, that Ivan actually gave you a note after the film was finished at a screening?
Yeah, that's true. We were watching the movie at CinemaCon in Las Vegas. It's the first time that father and I watched the movie with an audience. But halfway through the movie, my father leans over to whisper something in my ear, and I wonder what he's going to say. And he goes, "You gotta cut that shot down." But we did. He was right. We went back into editing. And we trimmed some time out of the first reel.
Wow. So that's great. I thought, to me, when I heard that for the first time, I was like, well, that's not very useful because we've finished the movie. This is the final cut.
That's the thing with modern filmmaking.
Yeah, it's never over until it's over.
We'll probably do some changes right after this podcast.
To look back then, Ivan, if you now, as yourself, could sit next to the 30-something Ivan Reitman on the set of the original Ghostbusters, are there any notes that you'd give yourself with the benefit of hindsight?
Yes. Yes. But one of the things I learned on this film was to trust in the kind of the naturalistic truth of various moments and scenes. And I think there's always been, I've always had a kind of an entertainer's kind of point of view and as a director. And I was always pushing for how to make something funnier and funnier, or improving a joke. And I was working with actors with extraordinary improvisational skills that could actually do those kinds of things, and without even thinking about it, it would just happen. And really, my job was to sort of try to keep them on a more focused point of view towards the story that we had been building, scene by scene. And what I saw with Jason was a combination of meticulousness that I really admired, and his focus, and being more relaxed about a moment that went by without a gag or a laugh, and that he was able to build on the emotionality of the story, which I think plays very well in this version of it.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. We'll get on to some of the moments that we can talk about, spoiler free, of course. But Jason, you mentioned from day one with this film that it was going to be a love letter to the original Ghostbusters movie. And I'm right in thinking you actually created a Ghostbusters advisory board to help get it right. And first of all, who do you put on a Ghostbusters advisory board?
It was a mixture of people who had worked on the original. So we're talking about, obviously my father's there, but Annie Potts was there. A visual effects supervisor, John Bruno, was there. We had Joe Medchuk, Shelley Kahn, who edited the film. So people who were involved in the crafting the original, because what we were always trying to do is really understood what it was like to make that film. Not unlike when Gus Van Sant recreated Psycho shot for shot. We wanted to know, okay, what did it actually feel like to make Ghostbusters? Why was the camera placed there? Why did the animatronic move that way? How did you get the dry ice to curl in that way? What were you using to blow wind to get their hair to move, that way? What made Slimer's skin move, in a certain way? All these things, or even in an orchestra. When you think about the kind of Gozerian tones that play, the big orchestral tones that play when in Gozer's presence, what is it that gives it that Elmer Bernstein raspiness in the low ends? Is it a question of where the mics are? Is it a question of using one instrument over another? We were dissecting this original film like archaeologists, and we were very lucky that many of the craftspeople who worked on the original made themselves available to us.
And I think what I always felt on the original film was whatever I may have done as the director of the film, really, I had extraordinary craftspeople and brilliant at their own thing, and they contributed so much that I remember just the movie got rewritten because of suggestions that were made by the production designer, by Sigourney Weaver, by various people in the making of this. And it was so much fun in terms of some of the accidental issues that came up in the development of it and the shooting of it.
And based on all the conversations you had, do you think you now have what you could call the definitive answer to what makes a Ghostbusters movie a Ghostbusters movie?
Good luck.
Yeah, look, we really wanted to nail Grandma's recipe. You know your grandmother's recipe when you taste it, and we wanted this to feel like a Ghostbusters film throughout. And honestly, that's been the loveliest part about screening this movie at Comic-Con, and now we just screened it in Mexico, or we screened it in Italy, and it feels as though Ghostbusters fans are embracing this movie. We wanted it to feel like Christmas morning. And you open it up and there's the PK meter, there's the proton pack, there's Ecto-1, everything you loved about the original. And when we watch it with audiences, particularly Ghostbusters fans, you can feel it's like that moment in Amelie when the guy's in the phone booth and opens up that little cigar box and inside are all his toys from his childhood. Like, that's the moment we wanted to give people.
Well, let's talk about that because I saw the movie for the first time yesterday. I'll do mine in a moment. But for you, Jason, what was the piece of kit that you had on set, or the one moment that you shot that was a nod to the original that gave you goosebumps? That you were like, wow.
This happens so many times. It's very hard to nail down to one. But I'm going to bring up something I brought up earlier, which really was thrilling. Dry ice. Dry ice seems like the simplest thing, but when you watch it curl out of that chimney and roll across the floor, when you watch it roll down the steps of the Temple of Gozer, there's something alive about it. It's different than any other smoke. It's different than CG smoke. And it was moments like that, or standing in front of the Terror Dog, the puppet Terror Dog, where you realize that even though we've made all these advances in CG technology, there's nothing quite like being on set and watching techniques that have been around since the history of cinema.
I mean, I will say it's at the start, the dry ice at the start when it appears, and I don't think that's a spoiler. I certainly hope it's not. When it does come down the stairs and into the living room, let's say.
Yeah.
I had to try and work out if that was CG or not, because it is so perfect. The front wave of that dry ice.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
No, we we all loved it so much that we wanted to play around in it. But then we had to be told that you can suffocate in dry ice because for whatever reason, I'm not sure if it's because of the weight of it, but there's not enough oxygen inside. So the kids wanted to lay down and play around in the dry ice and be like, no.
Ivan, are you a fan of dry ice as much as Jason?
Oh, I love it. You know, I did magic shows earlier in my career in the theater, and so that was a technique we use a lot, and to create a kind of mood. Yeah, so I would say yes, and I just love the magic of it, lit properly in a theater in front of your eyes.
And wind. My father brought up wind all the time. Wind is intricate. Wind is crucial for a Ghostbusters film. It's the presence of a ghost is told through wind. If you think about the original film, anytime someone's about to have a supernatural moment, you see their hair start to blow, you see their clothes start to move. And my dad said really early on, you want a note that my father gave me is make sure you always have wind. So we had a truck with every fan in the, whether it was a leaf blower or a 6-foot Ritter, we had everything you can get that moves air. And the special effects guys who operated them had to learn to be puppeteers, because you can't just point a fan at something. You got to learn to think of the fan as a puppet, and that you're moving the air, moving the leaves, moving the clothes, bringing it up on somebody so their hair starts to move at the perfect moment.
Yeah, it's the creature that you can't see, but can feel in the film because how it's affecting the characters that you can see.
I'll do mine very quickly. The Ecto-1 siren. When I heard that, and apologies to everyone who was in the Sony screening room yesterday, that was me crying. It had such a pronounced emotional effect on me hearing the Ecto-1 siren again. So yeah, it's a beautiful moment.
It got a cheer at Comic-Con that made me happy. One of the sounds that it's built on is a cat screaming.
I did not know that. Yeah. Wow, I've never cried at a cat screaming before. So whatever filters it was put through changed it. So, I mean, famously, Ivan, to finish the original Ghostbusters, you were really up against it for the summer 1984 release. Coming at this movie, not only as a producer, but as a father, would you say this has been more or less stressful as a movie-making journey?
I think more stressful. I mean, because of this disease that was affecting the entire world, and it was affecting movie going in particular, all large group experiences. And we always felt that this movie should be played in the cinemas. The idea of telling a great Ghostbuster story in the dark in front of hundreds of people is, I think, just more thrilling than even a very good movie just playing on a small screen when you're watching it alone. It's meant to be a group experience, I think. Both the comedy and the scary parts of it really are enhanced by seeing it with a lot of other people. And I was terrified that we would not be able to, we still don't know quite what's happening to the cinemas of the world. And we're hoping that people could be able to come out.
In terms of that, I guess, extra time that was provided due to those unforeseen circumstances of the pandemic, was that a help or a hindrance to you, Jason, being provided suddenly with you've got your movie and it's finished, and then you've got this time to potentially, I guess, fiddle around with it? Was that useful, or did you just want to get it out there?
I mean, I always wanted this movie to play as soon as possible from the moment I had the idea. And look, it's been an incredibly tragic couple of years, and my father and I have been very lucky. We've been very fortunate. People have lost way too much. As storytellers, we had a very rare opportunity with this film, which was to look at it with fresh eyes. This is something that normally you get to do as a writer, and you put down a script, and 6 months later pick up the script and read it and see what you really feel about it. Movie, you were normally in such a race for the deadline that you never give it that kind of, you're never given that point of view. So to be able to put down the movie for a few months and then watch it again, like a screenwriter, was remarkable. And that led to all kinds of great ideas.
Well, I mean, let's talk about the story itself. I have no doubt that over the years, Sony have received a ludicrous amount of pitches for Ghostbusters movies with a group of guys in a firehouse in New York. I think you've mentioned before that they greenlit your movie after reading a first draft of the script with almost no revisions. What do you think it was about your script that made Sony want to move on it so quickly?
It was really good. It was really, really good. From the very first draft, it had that wonderful combination of, you could understand the scary parts of it, you could laugh at the humorous parts of it, but what was undeniable was the emotional weight of it through the storytelling. And everyone who read it got that right away. And they literally got on board in a couple of weeks after reading that.
It's kind of an inspired decision, though, moving it to small town America, this town of Somerville. It gives the movie, for me at least, this wonderful timeless quality in the sense that although it's set in 2021, it could quite easily, bar a few little bits and pieces, be the 1980s. Was that part of the reason for choosing the setting? What made you want to move the action to a rural location?
Clearly I was looking for my own way into this universe and didn't find it until I thought of a 12-year-old girl with a proton pack in a field. And through her, really saw myself, someone rediscovering their history, picking up their legacy. And it's not an accident that I am the son of a Ghostbuster, and this is a movie about grandchildren of Ghostbusters. And putting it into a new location felt like an opportunity to make it my own, but also give Ghostbusters a journey back to New York City. And there's something about finding the equipment rotting and watching it be cleaned up, put back into operation, so that we can bring certain parts of this mythology that began in '84 to a close and then set other things off for the future.
And visually as well, like the farmhouse. I think it was at Comic-Con in New York, I hope I'm right, that Finn Wolfhard, who's great in the movie, said that you planted a whole barley field in the winter.
Yeah.
Ecto wanted to drive through. Is that right?
Yeah, we found the farmland in the dead of winter of Alberta, which is a stunning province, but it is freezing cold in January. And we looked at this hill and we imagined this house sitting on top of it. And we knew that we wanted to do this sequence of Trevor, basically wheat drifting a field that was meant to feel like a snowboarding video. except instead of a snowboard cutting through the snows, Ecto-1 cutting through the wheat. And so we planted all this barley, we planted some corn, and we were like farmers. We were like, checking the rain forecasts and hoping we were getting enough sun and bringing in more water when there wasn't enough, and measuring the height of the barley every week, and high-fiving on our progress when the yield was up. By the way, when we wrapped shooting, we harvested the barley. We made a yield. That's the one thing so far that Ghostbusters Afterlife has made money on. We made money on our crop. But one of the greatest things was we did this driving sequence, or Ecto-1, and we rebuilt Ecto-1 with a Corvette engine so the thing could haul ass, and it goes tearing through this barley field for about an hour. And when we get back, everyone's starting to go, "What's that smell?" And the engine had pulled in so much raw barley that it was cooking the barley inside Ecto-1 under the hood, and it smelled like we were like baking bread or something.
I love the fact you made money on your crop. I think I remember Christopher Nolan did the same thing with Interstellar. He had a fields of a crop that he then sold, and that was the first profit Interstellar turned as well.
I know. What I wanted to do and we couldn't was I wanted to harvest the corn and make popcorn so that you could have popcorn from the set of Ghostbusters, but the corn that we used was the corn that is used as feed, not the corn that could be turned into popcorn. I was really bummed out by that.
And so much about the original Ghostbusters and the making of it has been kind of mythologized. And Ivan, you'll be able to confirm this or not, but I remember Dan Aykroyd saying that around 80% of the dialogue on the original Ghostbusters was improv.
Not
Is that
true.
about
Not true.
Not true. I've seen the script. I've seen the script, and I've seen the script supervisor's notes, so I know where the improvs were.
I mean, there was a lot of improv, but it was focused in very particular areas that helped just improve the scene as it was originally written.
Okay.
And to say 80% is a disservice to Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis's brilliance at writing dialogue. And there's exceptional dialogue in that script.
I mean, with your own film, with Ghostbusters Afterlife, obviously you've got cast members who are no strangers to improvising.
Yeah.
How much of the dialogue in your film would you say was ad-libbed?
About 80%. I think I'm to put a number on it.
Don't do that.
No, look, we're working with Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd is one of the great comedic improvisers. He's one of the writers on Ant-Man. He absolutely wrote lines and came up with stuff on the spot. He and Carrie Coon have a lovely moment where it's this flirtation in the farmhouse after they first meet, and they just came up with those beats whole cloth right in front of me, and it was absolutely wonderful, and they made Gil and I look like better writers. And of course there's Bill Murray. There's the great Bill Murray, who I had always heard of these moments in which he throws an idea out there and all of a sudden something becomes iconic, and that happened. I remember we were watching Monitor and Bill said something, and my father and I looked at each other, and we just knew. It's like, oh, that's an iconic line, and we just watched it be born.
That's amazing. Yeah. You mentioned something earlier, Jason. You used archaeological as a description. And I think you've said that before in terms of this movie was archaeological for you in many ways. I think you even approached Sony about obtaining original dailies from the first film from a mine.
Do you want to explain the mines?
Well, we've always heard about the salt mines in, where is it?
Kansas.
Kansas, thank you. Where the original studios went to store their negatives for protection against bad things. And apparently there's some reason that those mines in Kansas are good for that. And in fact, that's where our negatives were stored.
And they were in great condition. I think that's the thing that astonished me the most was I had always heard these stories that film studios had all their original dailies hiding somewhere in a mine. And I presumed that they tossed these boxes in, never to be seen again.
Yeah.
And the truth is, we asked for them. They were able to locate them almost immediately. We zeroed in on the scenes we wanted, and we got everything from original dailies to 65 millimeter cloud tank footage that we used for those, Gozerian clouds. And we even found a piece of footage that truly, personally, was lost to history. And those were the 2 takes that I originally was supposed to appear in
Only
Ghostbusters 84. I was cut out for reasons that one could possibly never understand. And however, we scanned them and put them into Ghostbusters Afterlife, thus restoring my 6-year-old performance back to where it belongs.
Was that the real reason for making this movie?
There was only one reason to make this movie, my acting career. But Brownstone Boy number 2 made an appearance in Ghostbusters 1.
I love the tagline for the movie: "Uncover the past, protect the future." Is that in some way a metaphor for the way you want this movie to exist, in a way of kind of protecting the future of Ghostbusters as well as your father's legacy?
I see it as this unique mythology that is carried by everyone who's ever watched a Ghostbusters movie. It's just the one film I've ever made that never belonged to me. It always belonged to everybody else. And as the director, I was given the opportunity to be a momentary steward of Ghostbusters. All I wanted to do was make a movie that would make my father proud, that make my daughter proud, and make the Ramis family proud, and give people one more ride in Ecto One, and possibly set a foundation so that more Ghostbusters movies can happen.
And I mean, you said, I think it was at a Comic-Con, you talked about this idea of setting the table for potentially some of your favorite directors to take on a Ghostbusters movie as a complete sort of blank canvas exercise, a fairy tale situation.
Here we go.
Are there people out there, directors, filmmakers, who you would like to see taking on a Ghostbusters film? I mean,
countless filmmakers who I would love to see in this universe. I was in Mexico yesterday for the Morelia Film Festival, watching the movie with an all Mexican audience, and I was asked, who would you want to direct a Ghostbusters film? And I was like, well, Del Toro, how about him? I mean, that would be an extraordinary Ghostbusters film. I can think of countless filmmakers, and it's a wonderful mythology. Every culture has their relationship with the supernatural and the unknown, and I think we'd both love to see those movies.
Yeah.
And like you said, this is the first movie I guess you haven't owned, because you're an indie filmmaker at heart, or at least until now. This is your first franchise movie. Has the experience whet your appetite for more films of this scale? Could you see yourself directing a comic book adaptation? There's a few of those around at the moment.
I love this mythology, and I would love to continue working within it. I'd also love to continue telling personal stories. What really thrilled me about making Ghostbusters Afterlife was being able to do a movie of this kind of scale that had this potential entertainment value, that simultaneously was a personal story like all my other films.
And Ivan, for you, watching your son direct a Ghostbusters movie, do you see any parallels between his experience of making this film and your experience of making the original?
Yeah. I mean, he had to solve the same kinds of problems that we tried to solve, back in the early 80s. And it was really quite lovely because I got to sit back a lot and to just watch Jason work the puzzle out and find his own special way. I mean, I love that you talk about your own identifiable films, because in many ways, yes, my historical 84 movie is a big part of this, but really it's his movies as well. The having the family at the center, having a strong mother who is a very important character of this, the young women, Phoebe, who plays such an extraordinary role here, really is a character out of a Jason Reitman movie, and really acquits herself in a remarkable way here, and is perfect for the story.
You touched on this already, but just to go back to it, because like you say, the world of cinema has been in a strange place recently. What do you make of the changing viewing habits of people and the fact that people are watching movies at home so much more now? And how important do you think it is that cinema not survives, because it will survive, but that people still understand the importance of visiting the cinema to watch a movie and have that experience?
We love streaming as much as anybody else. And I think streaming helped everybody get through the pandemic. But what we miss the most, what we love, is going to the movies, is being inside a movie theater, buying the popcorn, watching the trailers, and seeing a film on a giant screen with incredible sound, with a group of strangers, and experiencing that thing that you can only get at the movies, where you laugh together and you cry together and you jump together and you scream together. And it's exactly the kind of movie we wanted to make with Ghostbusters, a film that could be seen on the big screen with the best sound amongst your community. It's the kind of thing that makes you feel closer to people you've never even met before.
And that first time that you did watch it together, I imagine, with an audience of fans, what was that like, actually seeing the reaction to your film for the first time?
What a thrill.
It's overwhelming. At Comic-Con was one of the great nights of my life.
Mine too.
Lovely. I can't wait to see it with the crowd. I saw it with about 7 people who I disturbed.
And they deserved
it. With my giant manly tears.
Well, let's prove that we're going to get to do this with you tonight.
I cannot wait. It's going to be great. Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing you in literally 3 hours time in person. I think that's about it for the moment. I will say one more question for you, Ivan. Can you give us any updates on the Twins movie? Is it happening? Is it going on?
I have my fingers crossed.
Okay. I do too. That'd be lovely. Both of you, congratulations on the film. I don't think I need to say anymore. I cried, I laughed, I had the time of my life. I was the 7-year-old me all over again, being terrified by that freaking library ghost. Before I actually saw the movie, I had the big annual that you could get, and I don't know how much input you had into that, Ivan, but I think it was a very cruel thing to open that book on a double-page spread of the library ghost post-transformation, which was insane.
It's an amazing image, though.
An amazing image. But when you don't know it's coming and you've just bought a Ghostbusters annual and you open up that, wow, that's going to stay with you. Guys, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you this evening.
Yeah, see you tonight. Bye.
Hello, Alex here. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to get in touch with us at all, for any reason, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at JTFpod. And don't forget to subscribe to the full audio podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your pods.